Welcome to Geometric Virtual Learning. This is lesson 2 on completing the square. May I please suggest here that if you haven't watched the first lesson on completing the square, you might need to pause it and go back and watch lesson 1, because lesson 2 is the continuation of where we left off, and we'll be drawing some concepts already explained in lesson 1, and you might need to review that before you watch lesson 2. In this lesson, we will be looking at steps to complete the square for quadratic expressions where x squared has a coefficient more than 1, and where the b is a multiple of a, and also where coefficient of x squared is more than 1 and b is not a multiple of a. This distinction is very important because they involve two different approaches, or certain concept needs to be factored in, and I will actually stress that point so that you will know the difference between b being a multiple of a and b not being a multiple of a. Then lastly, we'll talk about how to use completing the square to find the minimum point of quadratic functions. We have an example, 2x squared minus 6x minus 3. We can see clearly that a is 2 and b absolute value is 6, and now 6 is a multiple of 2. So this is the first one we're talking about, where b is a multiple of 2. Now you remember the formula that we quoted earlier in lesson 1 for completing the square for the first two terms is only when the coefficient of a is exactly equal to 1. So in this case, it's not equal to 1. Therefore, we need to manipulate the expression to make sure coefficient of x squared is equal to 1, so that it can lend itself to the use of the formula. So we focus on the first two terms, and we do that by factoring out the coefficient of x squared. So here we factor out 2. So you're going to now have 2 into bracket x squared minus 3x minus 3. Now we've managed to get what is in the bracket to conform to our formula for completing the square. And formula for completing the square, if you recall, is like this: x minus b over 2 all squared minus b over 2 squared, then plus the c. So now we need to look at x squared minus 3x. That is going to help us get everything in here. Then we continue with what? Minus 3, which is the plus c. Now we do that. Our b now is 3. So the 6 that we had wasn't the true b because it wasn't in the standard form. So here our b is now 3. 3 divided by 2 becomes a fraction. So we're going to replace this by 3 divided by 2, this by 3 divided by 2, and we have our minus 3. But we do that making sure that this 2 is outside the bigger bracket. How do we do that? Everything in this blue bracket represents from this end all the way to that end. But that's what this is all about. So we should have the 2 outside the bigger bracket. Then we continue with the constant. So next step is to compute 3 over 2 all squared. So 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4, so we have that. Next is to open the bracket. So we have two main terms. That's the first term, and that's the second term. So 2 is going to multiply each of the terms. Now from this onwards, this section always repeats. You don't do anything again with this section. All that you need to do is to work out what is outside this section. So we need to work out 2 9 over 4. That works out simplified as 9 over 2. Then finally we work out negative 9 over 2 minus 3. And that works out as negative 15 over 2. and that completes the square. So the answer to 2x squared minus 6x minus 3, when you complete the square, becomes 2 into bracket x minus 3 over 2 squared minus 15 over 2. Now let's look at the situation where the b is not a multiple of a. You could see clearly that 8 is not a multiple of 3. But we still need to manipulate this expression, making sure x squared has a coefficient of 1. So we still need to factor out 3. And because 8 is not a multiple of 3, think of factorizing and expanding bracket. They work opposite way. When you factorize and you expand the bracket, it takes you back to the original expression. So in factoring out 3, you end up dividing 8 by 3. Because when you expand the bracket, 3 times 8x is 24x. 24x divided by 3 will still give you 8x. So the rule I want you to remember here is, when your b is not a multiple of a, in factoring out, you end up dividing your b by the coefficient of x squared. When b is not a multiple of a, in factoring out the coefficient of x squared, you end up dividing your b by the coefficient of x squared. Now, we've now got our true b, which is 8 over 3. Formula says x plus b over 2. So this b has to be divided by 2. And that's where most students get confused or forget to do, because they think that 8 over 3 is a fraction, so they substitute straight away. That is the true b, and it has to be divided by 2 to conform to the formula. So work this out separately. 8 over 3 divided by 2 works out to 4 over 3. So in place of b over 2, we'll replace that with 4 over 3. Not forgetting a bigger bracket, putting 3 outside. That is what we have. Now, we need to work out 4 over 3 squared. That gives us 16 over 9. Open the bracket, so 3 multiply each of the sections, 2 sections in the bracket. That's what we've got. Now, from here onwards, this remains the same. Nothing changes. All we need to do is to compute this section. So let's do it step by step. We work out 3, 16 over 9 gives us 16 over 3. So replace this with 16 over 3. Then finally, work out negative 16 over 3 plus 2. Negative 16 over 3 plus 2. When you work that out, that gives you negative 10 over 3. So I'm replacing everything here with negative 10 over 3, and that completes the square. So the answer to 3x squared minus 8x plus 2, when you complete the square, gives you 3 into bracket x minus 4 over 3 squared minus 10 over 3. Now let's look at an exam question. So we need to write 3x squared plus 18x minus 1 in the form a into bracket x plus b all squared plus c. Then find the minimum point of the curve y equals 3x squared plus 8x minus 1. So we start with the expression 3x plus 18x minus 1. We factor out 3. Focus on the first two terms. We now complete the square, open a bigger bracket. 6 is our b, divided by 2 gives you 3. That's why you see the 3. Compute 3 squared. Now expand the bracket. Now all you need to do is to compute this section. So let's do it step by step. 3 times 9 is 27. So we have negative 27 minus 1 that completes the square as 3 into bracket x plus 3 all squared minus 28. So now you can see, if we're asked to even state the values, you can see our A equals 3, B also equals 3, and C equals negative 28. Now to get the minimum point from what we said in lesson 1, it's always the answer in the bracket to be your x coordinate, the answer outside the bracket as your y coordinate, but inside the bracket we use the opposite of the number, opposite of plus 3 is negative 3. So we always the opposite of the sign. So plus 3 becomes negative 3 minus 28. So the coordinate point is negative 3 minus 28. That brings us to the end of lesson 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe and share with your friends. Look out for more lessons on this channel. In our next lesson, we'll be combining lesson 1 and 2 and use completing the square to solve quadratic equation. So our last lesson, completing the square, will be using completing the square to solve quadratic equation. Hope you've enjoyed this. Have a nice day. Thank you.